Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. We've got a Necrons video for you today in regards to the Night Scythe, which is of course the Necron flying transport model that we've got available in our codex. Now the reason we're doing this kind of video today and not a rate it or hate it video is because, well, since the new balance update and the new rules commentary that we had at the end of January, there was a few amendments in particular to how transports now work. One of those amendments was in regards to as soon as you enter the battlefield with your transport, you're allowed to automatically disembark the unit inside the transport, which kind of makes things a little bit more unique for the Night Scythe because of abilities and so on. So we're going to get into that today and we're going to kind of discuss, is this now a competitive play, a competitive tactic, or is this still an overpriced combination? We're going to get into the bottom of that. So I'm not going to go through the whole data card like we usually do. This isn't a review, it's not a rate or hate it. I just simply want to talk about that specific tactic today. So the first thing I need to really discuss is the rule itself, which is the new rule in the rules commentary that was added at the end of January. Arriving from strategic reserves in the first battle round. Now normally you can't arrive from strategic reserves in the first battle round, but the Night Scythe's ability Quantum Invader allows it to do so in the first, second or third battle round, regardless of any mission rolls. So already the Night Scythe has a way to bypass the standard Leviathan rules and the standard core rules by simply having the Quantum Invader rule. So what this new amendment to this rules commentary says, if you're arriving into the battle from your first, second or third movement phase using strategic reserves, treat the current battle round as one higher than it actually is. So you're treating the battle round as if it is one higher in the first battle round. So battle round 1 will be regarded as battle round 2. Now the reason why that is important, because if you go into the core rules and you go to strategic reserves, and where it mentions setting up strategic reserve units, nowhere does it say how to set up a unit from the first battle round. It only says during the second battle round you can set the model up wholly within 6 inches of any table edge, but no models can be set up in the enemy deployment zone, and then it goes on to say the third battle round and so on. Nothing about the first battle round. So if this is a kind of, it's a way of explaining how we're going to be using this ability in the first battle round. It sort of clarifies it so you can show your opponent, no, I can actually come in the first battle round. But the main sort of tactic behind this new combination, if you like, is another rule in the rules commentary, which is embarked units and reserves. Now we did mention this as well in one of the previous videos we did. So embarked units and reserves. Units embarked within a reserves model can be disembarked in the turn that the model was set up. So as soon as you set up your Night Scythe wholly within 6 inches of the table edge, not your opponent's deployment zone of course, in battle round 1 or 2, you can immediately disembark effectively as long as you're more than 9 inches horizontally away from more than enemy models, and they count as being, and the unit will count as having made a normal move. They can't be declaring a charge, but the combo we're going to talk about in a moment doesn't really matter. But then they're going to be acting as normally for the remainder of the turn, apart from the fact that they can't charge. Cool. So what we then do is you go back to that transport capacity of the Night Scythe. 1 infantry unit. Now that infantry unit, it could be the following. It could be, again, 20 warriors. Could have a cryptek in there, maybe an overlord in there. It could be 10 immortals with a character in there. You've also got the melee options of Lichguard and maybe Scuba Destroyers, but remember you can't charge if you're using this new auto disembark ability from the rules commentary. Of course you can just use your Night Scythe as normal and disembark the normal way, so there won't be a restriction, but you have to do that, you have to wait an entire turn in order to actually disembark, which kind of sucks. Because the transport, of course, needs to remain stationary in order for you to actually disembark the normal way. It can't remain a normal move, advanced move, fallback move, and so on. So yeah, this is going to mainly really benefit the shooter units. Again, warriors and immortals. So let's kind of break this down a bit further. That's what we're going to be talking about, the immortals and the warriors. So we're going to be 9 inches away, which is fine because even your Ghost Reapers from your warriors can now reach if you wanted to reach. And the option that I would like to select if I was to do this combination would probably be the Plasmancer. Your 20 warriors disembark from the Night Scythe, turn 1, right up the battlefield, not in your opponent's deployment zone of course, but as long as you're 9 inches away from enemy models and within 12, so you can shoot your Ghost Reapers, you're going to have your 20 warriors, that's 40 shots. Any 5 pluses are critical hits, which are then lethal hits because of the Gauss weapons. You could do a lot of damage with that. The Plasmancer also has his damage output of Living Lightning, so he's going to be doing some mortal wounds on top of that. And the best part is, well, the Night Scythe has another ability. The other ability, which is Translocation Beams. Now, Translocation Beams happen at the end of any of the fight phases. If there are no models embarked within the Night Scythe, which there shouldn't be because you've just disembarked your warriors or your immortals, depending on what you've gone with. If you're within 6 inches, which you should be because you were wholly within 6 inches at the start when you disembarked, you can pick your warriors up or whatever unit you've got and re-embark them. You can put them back in the Night Scythe. So that means your warriors or immortals, whatever you've selected, they are now not going to be selected as a target of a range attack, or a melee attack in fact, unless the Night Scythe goes down. So they've now got to go through the Night Scythe to get to your infantry models. Now this Night Scythe, okay, it's not the most durable transport we've got, don't get me wrong, but it is toughness 9, which means there's only a few, in terms of your opponent's list, in terms of all the weaponry, as far as range attacks go, they're going to need some pretty decent strength range weapons to go firing at the Night Scythe, and those attacks are not firing at your Catan, they're not firing at maybe your Silent King, your Locust Heavy Destroyers, whatever other units you've got within your list, they're now trying to target a toughness 9 flyer. It has got a 3+ armor save with no invulnerable save, but you can actually turn the invulnerable save on. In fact, if you're using the Hypercrypt Legion, there's a 4+ invulnerable save stratagem with quantum deflection, which will be quite handy for 1 CP. So you can turn on the invulnerable save, and 12 wounds as well. You've then got to bear in mind there's a little bit more of a defense in terms of the melee attacks, because only units that can fly can actually get within engagement range and fight on Night Scythe. So if you're going up against a load of Orc Boys, or there's a load of Gaunts trying to tag our flyer, they're not going to be able to do so because they don't have the fly keyword. So in the fight phase we may be quite protected. Again, it depends on who you go up against, it depends on your local metas. If there's a lot of flying units that are melee based, then yeah, the Night Scythe might be in a bit of trouble. It's probably going to go down, and then you're thinking that's 145 points I've just spent just to get these warriors in to shoot first turn. Now it's not just about shooting here though, there's also things such as secondary objectives that you can get a unit of Immortals to do perhaps. You could go really cheap with it, you don't even need to worry about the damage outlay, you don't even need to worry about characters really. You could have just 5 Immortals that you can pop into a certain location, and maybe it's deployed teleport home. You know, maybe you're playing fixed. Fixed isn't the worst thing nowadays. A lot of people sort of turn their nose up at fixed secondary missions. It's actually quite decent if you kit your list out correctly. So you could be playing deployed teleport home as an example, doing that first turn, because that is a problem, especially playing fixed. How do you score some of these secondaries that you've selected in the first turn? It's quite difficult. That's where you sort of drop a few points. If you can get your points first turn, that's great. We've then got to consider the fact that the Night Scythe has the ranged weapon, which is, okay, you're spending 145 points to do all this stuff, but you also do get the Twin Tesla Destructor. It's only 6 shots, but you've got sustained hits too, so you're likely going to get 6 hits. It's strength 8 and twin linked with damage 2, so it can destroy like a Space Marine kind of unit. It could get rid of an intercessor unit throughout the game, and that's about, roughly off the top of my head, that's about 100 points right there. So it can make its points back, plus you've done this turn 1 shenanigans. In some lists I can see this tactic working, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't know if I would prefer to use it or not, because we've got a lot of things that we could do instead, which we're going to go over later on in this video. Things to compare that are just a cheaper way of doing what it's doing. But yeah, I think it can work. I mean, going back to the trick itself, you don't have to take even a Plasmancer. You could take, say, a Chronomancer. You offload the unit with a Chronomancer potentially. Maybe you've got an Overlord in there as well. Maybe you've got the Obeisance Phalanx detachment, in fact. And you use the Enslaved Artifice stratagem, which still gives you the 5+ critical hits, even though there's no Plasmancer there. But the Chronomancer has its own tricks. You've got the movement after shooting, so you make your shots with the lethal hits. Critical hits on a 5+ with the stratagem. You're 9 inches away, don't forget, but you can now move 5 inches because of the Chronometron ability from the Chronomancer. So, but then you can move 5 inches towards your opponent with the Chronomancer's ability, the Chronometron. So now you're only 3 inches away. which means you could start to actually get toes on objectives early. I don't know how much you can benefit from doing that in turn 1 though, is my problem with that. You don't score your primaries until turn 2. There are some objectives that you could have from the secondary deck that require you to get, capture enemy outposts or something. I mean, that'd be quite difficult to do. It'll be quite guarded turn 1. But there are some situations where you can get toes on objectives, OC2 per model, using a Chronomancer maybe. And the Chronomancer also has the -1 to hit for enemy units firing at the unit. Now, it's not as durable as jumping back into the flyer. In fact, with that Obeisance Phalanx, you've got the -1 to damage stratagem as well, don't you? Which we normally use on the Silent King, but you could use it on the Night Scythe as well. So there is a bit of durability if you use the translocation beams to get them back in. But let's do a bit of a comparison, because this is sort of the main... This is it, really. This is what it's about, because the Night Scythe is 145 points, and to most people, that's just too expensive, me included. I think that's too expensive to do what we want to do here. Turn 1, jumping out, firing, jumping back in, or doing an action, whatever. I think it's just too expensive, and here is why. I've got quite a number of examples for you. So if you're playing the Awakened Dynasty, you've got the option of the Veil of Darkness Relic. The Veil of Darkness Relic is only 20 points, but you can pop them in, especially if you go second, you can pop your unit back in, because it happens in the next movement phase, and you didn't start on the battlefield. So in the Leviathan deck rules, it says something along the lines of you can't come in on turn 1 if you start on the battlefield. I don't have it to hand now, but where is it? It's not here, is it? No. You can't enter the battlefield from reserves in turn 1, but if you start on the battlefield, the rules kind of don't apply. It's just your next movement phase. So you could use a Veil of Darkness, only 20 points. It's cheaper, of course, than 145. It is a one-use only kind of deal, so you can't jump back into the Night Scythe and then maybe fly off again and do it again, or hyper-phase the Night Scythe with the Hypercrit Legion and then do it again that way. It is a once, but it's only 20 points, so who cares if it's a once per thing. You also, of course, can't hide the unit after actually making your shots as well. Once you've used the Veil, you're there forever. That's it. The Canoptic Core, you've got the Dimensional Sanctum enhancement. Now this isn't exactly the same, this is Infiltrators. This gives the unit infiltration. So if you've got your 20 warriors with Infiltrate, with a Cryptek, maybe an Overlord, maybe not an Overlord, up to you, you're going into the No Man's Land 9 inches away from enemy models, which is pretty much what you need to do anyway if you're using the automatic disembark ability from the rules commentary. The only difference here though is this is 20 points again, much cheaper, but also you're going to be able to still move. If in your turn 1 you can move your 5 inches with your warriors, or if you've got Immortals you can move your 5 inches, advance, and then fire your Tesla weapons, so you've actually gained more ground that way. So that's another option there. You've got the Hypercrypt Legion just as a detachment as a whole. You've got the Hyperphasing, which is completely free. Up to 3 units in a standard competitive game can come off the battlefield in your opponent's turn. Again, if you go second, you can be doing that, and it just pops them into Strategic Reserves, which is in fact another option in itself. Strategic Reserves. Why can't the warriors just not have a flyer and just pop in from reserves naturally? 9 inches away from enemy models. It's just not turn 1, that's the only difference. It's not turn 1 there. But with the hyperphasing ability, it could be. From that same detachment, you've got the Austriaclay Fulcrum, which gives them Deep Strike. Now that's not turn 1, but it's going to get them further afield if there was the space. If there was a little bit of a gap, I mean, getting 20 warriors plus another character or 2 will be quite difficult to get in your opponent's territory. But maybe there's a gap there. If you're playing against Knights, for example, there'll be a lot more space. Whereas if you're playing against Orcs, Tyranids, and so on, then there won't be as much space. It all depends on who you're going up against, I suppose, on that one. But sticking with that detachment, you've got sneaky things such as the Cosmic Precision Stratagem. Now this is only 1 CP, which you get free CP every turn, or free, F-R-E-E, as in not the number 3. You get CP every turn. Cosmic Precision gets you 3 inches away from enemy units, and you're using Deep Strike even if you don't have Deep Strike. That, to me, makes the most sense. That's virtually free. It's just 1 CP. That's, you're not paying points for CP, are you? It just comes. And if you've got Imitate the Stormlord, then he just provides you one. So I think that just makes the most sense if you want to get to where you want to get to. Okay, you're not jumping back into a flyer, but now you can get really close. You can force your opponent's hand to have to deal with the warriors. They probably will die, don't get me wrong. They're going to get shot at, they're going to get charged. Your opponent is not going to like where they are positioned. But at the same time, you're now moving up your Nightbringer up the board. You're now moving your Void Dragon up the board. You're now moving your Locust Heavy Destroyers with the Exterminators up the board. The Lich Guard are now travelling up the board. Your Wraiths are now rapidly going up the board. Everything's moving and it's being distracted by the warriors. What else do we have? We've got the Hyperphase Recoil. If you've got a Monolith and you lose a single warrior, you can ping him across the battle, or ping the unit across the battlefield towards your Monolith, hold it within 6 inches. That can kind of work both ways really, because you could use the Cosmic Precision stratagems to get them into a certain location. Maybe it scores you some points, does something here or there, and maybe you've got a Monolith that's just deep struck in. I mean, this will be turn 2 now, so I suppose, but you can put the Monolith in the centre of the battlefield. As soon as you lose a warrior, you can kind of pull your warriors away again for safety after scoring your points. So you've got that option. I mean, speaking of the Monolith, you've got the Eternity Gate as a natural ability that it has. So you can step out from reserves or take a unit that's on the battlefield and have them hold it within 6 inches. They're not going to be able to charge, but who cares? They're not going to be there charging. And if you really wanted to charge, if it was Lich Guard, if it was Scorpion Destroyers, you've got the Dimensional Corridor stratagem anyway. So there's lots of different things you can do with that. Finally, I thought I'd mention this one, the Overlord with the Translocation Shroud, combined with the Chronomancer. What's that in terms of points? My brain is off at the moment in terms of maths. 85 is the Overlord. How much are Chronomancers again? Are they 60? Let's have a little check. 50, I was wrong. So 135 points combined, which is 10 points shy of the actual Night Scythe. But you could have the Overlord with the Shroud and a Chronomancer, and you're going to get the auto advance of 6 inches through terrain and models. If you're taking Immortals, you can still fire because you've got the Tesla Carbines with the assault keyword on the weapon, and then because you've fired, the Chronomancer will allow for another 5 inches of movement. So just in terms of movement alone, you're looking at 16 inches. 5 inches for the standard movement, 6 inches for the advanced move, that's 11, then another 5 more for the Chronomancer's Chronometron ability. So you can get these guys up the battlefield into the location that the Night Scythe probably will put you in anyway. It's only 10 points cheaper, but with the Night Scythe combo you probably would need a Cryptic anyway, so that's going to make it even more expensive as a combination. You probably need a Plasmancer, you probably need a Chronomancer, one of those. So really it's just comparing the Overlord and the Night Scythe. So what do I feel about this one? What do I feel about this new combination that's come out? I've seen it a lot on forums, I've seen it a lot around the Facebook chats and group chats, Discord chats. Gonna be honest, I still think it's just expensive. I just think it's there's so many cheaper things, there's so many ways of moving our there we go. We've got so many ways of just moving our units now, especially if you're playing the Hypercrypt Legion, which is what I go to at the moment. I don't think you need the Night Scythe. In some lists, it can be great. It can be great. Maybe the Obeisance Phalanx, you've not got as much movement shenanigans as you would in other detachments. You still could use a Monolith, but you're not going to use a Monolith in that detachment realistically. You've not got the Hyperphasing stuff, you've not got the Cosmic Precision stuff. So that kind of cancels all that out. You've not got a Veil of Darkness in there, because that's the Awakened Dynasty, so that cancels all that stuff out. There's no Infiltrate or Deep Strike because that's other detachments. So if you are playing the Obeisance Phalanx, then yeah, maybe that's something. There's also maybe the Annihilation Legion. If you're playing that, which I don't think many people are, but if you've got the Scorpion Lord and the Scorpion Destroyers, it's maybe a method of getting them in. But other than that, I mean, the Annihilation Legion doesn't really need it. The Scorpion Destroyers, they would like another method of getting in, but you can't charge after using this auto disembark thing. So you'd have to do it the old-fashioned way. It's not really going to work. So for me, I still think it's not the most competitive, but it's another option. We like options, so I think it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. I mean, we completely shelved Night Scythes this edition. I don't think I've really touched mine properly anyway, not competitively. I haven't touched it, which is a shame because it's, you know, a lot of people like the flyer, a lot of people like the model. It's a very unique looking model, but flyers this edition just don't do enough for the points. They don't control objectives. They're not very durable nowadays, they go down very quick. I mean, what edition was it? Was it 8th or 7th where flyers were king? Everyone had the flyers. It was like with the Hell Drakes and all these flyers all over the place. They were just absolute beasts of the game. Nowadays, they just don't do enough. Unless it's got a lot of shooting capabilities, which our Night Scythe doesn't. I mean, even our Doom Scythe, which isn't a transport, of course, but the Doom Scythe's got the Doom's Blaster thingy-majig, and even that isn't really getting selected when you can compare it to the Locust Heavy Destroyers. Even the Monolith can be compared to it, and these flyers just aren't doing enough. This is another way to utilise our transport flyer, but 145 points, I still don't think it's good enough. Drop it down to 100 points and then we'll talk about it. So guys, you'll have to let me know, what do you think about this combination? Are you using it now? Were you using it before? In fact, we're using Night Scythes. But now that they've had this little buff, are you going to be using this competitively? Let me know down in the comments down below.